Introduction into American Sign Language by Lauren Ambrose and Sarah Sirkowski. Most of you are familiar with the written alphabet. Now let's learn how the letters are made in the American Sign Language. Within this presentation, we will walk you through ways to position your fingers for each sign. ASL can be used in a variety of settings, from school, home, work, and even leisure activity with friends that are hearing impaired. Now let's get started.
A is for Adam. To make the letter A in ASL, you are going to bend your index, middle, ring, and pinky finger down into your palm. The only finger that will be straight up when making this sign will be your thumb. In a way, this sign sort of looks like a fist. The only difference is that your thumb is not being included as part of the fist.
B is for ball. The sign for the letter B is very simple. What you're going to do to make this sign is have all of your fingers except your thumb point straight up to the ceiling. Make sure that you keep all of these fingers that are pointing to the ceiling close together so that they are touching each other. Then you are going to cross your thumb over into your palm.
C is for car. For the letter C, you are going to semi-bend your index, middle, ring, and pinky finger so that they make an arch. Next, you will slightly bend your thumb. As you start to bend your thumb, you will notice that the position of your hand makes a C shape.
D is for dog. The letter D is a pretty complex letter to sign. First, you are going to point your index finger up to the ceiling like you are conveying to the audience that your sports team is number 1. Once you have your index finger pointing up, you then want to slightly bend your middle, index, and pinky finger at a diagonal angle so that they can be placed upon your thumb. This sign is very similar to the letter C because you can check to make sure that you signed the letter D correctly by looking at the shape of your hand after taking all of the steps to make this sign. An important thing to note is that depending upon which hand you use to sign this letter, you are going to get different results. For example, if you used your right hand, you will clearly see a D shape. However, if you used your left hand to sign the letter D, then you will clearly see a B shape even though you are signing the letter D.
E is for egg. In order to make the letter E, you are going to slightly bend your index, middle, ring, and pinky fingers as if you were a wild animal in preparation to pounce on your prey. Once those 4 fingers are bent and closely touching each other, they will then rest upon your thumb. Now comes for the most difficult part of the sign, which is bending your thumb down but having it create a parallel line. You will feel some discomfort when trying to make the thumb parallel because your thumb is not intended to bend that way. However, once the thumb is bent and creates a parallel line, you will then place those 4 bent fingers on top of your thumb.
F is for fox. For the letter F, you are going to fan out your pinky, ring, and middle fingers so that there is space between each of these fingers. Next, you are going to slightly bend your index finger down to your thumb. Once your index finger and thumb are touching, they will create the shape of an O. A great way to remember this sign is that it looks if you are giving the OK to someone.
G is for goat. The sign for the letter G is very complex. First, you want to have your middle, ring, and pinky finger bent completely down to your palm. Next, you will want to point your index finger as if you were directing someone to do a specific action. Lastly, extend your thumb so that it is parallel to your index finger.
H is for house. Like the previous sign we learned, H is a very complex letter to sign. The first step you want to take is to bend your ring and pinky finger completely down to your palm. Next, extend your index and middle finger as if you were directing someone to perform a specific action. It is important to note that these fingers need to be closely touching each other. The last step of this sign is to hide your thumb so that it is not seen.
I is for ice cream. In order to make the sign for the letter I, you will first want to completely bend your index, middle, and ring finger all the way down to your palm. Make sure that all of these fingers are closely touching with each other. Next, you will have your pinky finger and thumb pointing straight up to the ceiling. Again, make sure that these two fingers are closely touching the inner fingers, which are bent down into the palm.
J is for jet. For the letter J, you want to make a fist, but keep your pinky finger extended up to the ceiling. Next, make a scoop or J hook motion with that pinky finger that is extending towards the ceiling.
K is for kangaroo. To make the letter K, first completely bend your ring and pinky finger down to your palm. Now you are going to cross over your thumb in a diagonal motion so that it is in between your index and middle finger. It is important to note that your index and middle fingers are slightly slanted diagonal.
L is for library. The sign for the letter L is very simple. What you want to do first is have your pinky, ring, and middle finger completely bent down into your palm. Next, you are going to make a capitalized L with your index finger and thumb. In order to do this, you will have your index finger point straight up to the ceiling and make your thumb create a parallel line. As a result, once you put these two steps together, you have created a capitalized L. One strategy to remember this sign is that it is commonly used as the loser sign when someone is making fun of another person.
M is for monkey. First, what you want to do is form sort of the letter M with your three fingers located at the middle of your hand. These fingers include your index, middle, and your ring finger. Next, you will slide your thumb underneath all three of these fingers in the middle of your hand. To make sure that you are doing the letter M sign correctly, you will see the thumb that you stuck underneath your three fingers in the middle of your hand poking out in between your ring finger and pinky. The end result of this sign looks like a fist, but instead your thumb is tucked under your three fingers located in the middle of your hand, and the tip of your thumb can be seen between your ring and pinky finger.
N is for nurse. The sign for the letter N is very similar to the sign we previously learned for the letter M. Instead of sliding our thumb under the three fingers located at the middle of your hand, you will just slide your thumb under your index and middle finger. It is important to note that the tip of your thumb will now be in between your middle finger and your ring finger. The finished product for the letter N sign is that a fist will be formed, but your thumb is tucked under your index and middle finger of your hand, and the tip of your thumb can be seen between your middle and ring finger.
O is for owl. The sign for O is very easy. It is very similar to the sign we already learned for the letter C. Basically, all you need to do to form the sign is make a circle by bringing your pinky finger all the way up to your index finger close together. Then you will bring those four fingers down, forming an arch where all four tips of those four fingers will rest upon the top portion of your thumb.
P is for penguin. To make the letter P, first completely bend your ring and pinky finger down to your palm. Now you are going to cross over your thumb in a diagonal motion so that it is in between your index and middle finger. It is important to note that your index and middle finger are slightly slanted together. Finally, point your hand down so that your fingers are pointing to the ground.
Q is for queen. The sign for the letter Q is very complex. First, you want to have your middle, ring, and pinky finger bent completely down to your palm. Next, you want to point your index finger as if you were directing someone to do a specific action. Next, extend your thumb so that it is parallel to your index finger. Lastly, point your hand down so that your fingers are pointing to the ground.
R is for raccoon. To make the sign for the letter R, you first want to completely bend your ring finger and pinky finger down to your palm. Next, you want to cross your thumb over so that it is diagonally on your ring finger, which is completely bent down to your palm. Now, have your middle finger point straight up to the ceiling, and then have your index finger overlap your middle finger in a slightly diagonal angle.
S is for story. For the letter S, make a fist. Then have your thumb laid diagonally on your index and middle finger.
T is for tortoise. In order to make the sign for the letter T, bend your middle, ring, and pinky finger completely down to your palm. Now rest your thumb on your middle finger. Lastly, bring down your index finger so that it wraps around your thumb.
U is for unicorn. To make the letter U, bend your ring and pinky finger completely down to your palm. Then diagonally cross your thumb so that it rests upon your ring finger. Your last step is to have your index and middle finger pointing straight up to the ceiling while closely touching each other.
V is for vegetable. The sign for the letter V is very similar to the sign we just learned for the letter U. The only difference between the sign U and V is that for the letter V, you need to separate your middle finger from your index finger. By separating the middle and index finger, the shape of a V will be formed. The end product for the letter V is your index and middle finger separated from each other but sticking straight up, and your thumb is placed against your ring finger, which is bent down to your palm.
W is for whale. The sign for the letter W is a continuation from the letter V. The difference between these two signs is that you are going to bring up your previously bent ring finger to form the shape of a W with your fingers. Therefore, all three fingers located in the middle of your hand are separated from each other and sticking up straight to create the shape of a W. And your thumb is placed against your pinky finger, which is bent down to your palm.
X is for X-ray. To form the letter X, bend your pinky, ring, and middle finger down to your palm. Then, place your thumb against your middle finger that is bent. Raise your index finger straight up. Once your index finger is straight up, you will then bend the index finger down to form the shape of a lowercase r.
Y is for yak. To form the letter Y, bend your index, middle, and ring finger down completely to your palm. Lastly, have your pinky finger and thumb extended outward so each is slightly forming a diagonal angle.
Z is for zebra. To form the letter Z, make a fist without your index finger. Then have your thumb cross over so that it is bent against your middle finger. Make sure that your hand is pointing sideways so that your index finger points to someone to perform a specific action. Lastly, you are going to form the outlines of the actual letter Z by writing the letter in the air with your index finger.